Hello and welcome back to Debbie J's Crafting Corner. This is Debbie, and today I just felt like playing with some of my inks and heat embossing. So that's what the topic of today's video is. We're just going to be playing with some Distress Oxide and then doing some heat embossing on the on that inked background. I have been sick, so I apologize first off for not having been around for a little bit. I know you guys understand because we all go through this. What I'm doing for this one, I am taking part in the coloring challenge for the daily marker. And so for today's challenge, I just grabbed my Distress Oxide inks and this new background stamp. I had colored some images about a week or two ago, having a book or library kind of feel to it. So when I got this really cute stamp set, I just decided that would be the perfect background. Not real sure on what colors that I want to do, but I did want to do some kind of like a library feel. A lot of older libraries and homes were kind of dark, but I couldn't go that dark. So I'm mixing some browns with a blue-green. I don't remember off the top of my head what colors those are at the moment, but I will list those on the screen for you on the video. So I first started off with just putting down some of that blue color, no real rhyme or reason, and didn't really try to blend it all that well. And then I'm going back in with the darkest of the two browns that I chose out of the Distressed Oxides. Again, I'm not really trying to blend it out or anything. I'm just working on getting some of that color in. And this is using one of the Picket Fence life-changing blending brushes, one of the medium to large size of those. I've got a few of those, and then I just recently got in just some regular makeup brushes that look about the same, and I'll be showing you guys those on a future video. Each time when I finish up with a color, I do wipe the brush off using a not sure what this cloth is. A microfiber cloth. Mine is super filthy, so I do need to wash those. But I know we should never wash them in with any kind of clothes unless you want ink stains on your clothes. So I need to put them in a separate one. I do have several of those cloths, so I'm working my way through them and long enough to get that get them into a batch for doing laundry with. So after I got done with the two browns, I decided it was too brown. So I'm going back in with the blue-green. I believe this is Salty Ocean. I'm going back over that. You can still see the browns real well through it. So like I said, I wasn't really blending anything out, and I didn't think I went overboard on any of the colors. I did like how it turned out in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up coloring that, and then I'm going to spritz it with my Distress sprayer. And then next, after that sat for a moment, I'm just blotting it off with that microfiber cloth. You can see how filthy that darn thing is. And I'm spritzing it again because I'm not real good with this. This is a technique I do need a lot more practice on. So I'm not real sure how much the water I'm supposed to use. I'm actually using, for the paper, I didn't use my good solid cardstock like I should have. I used a scrap. And now I'm using my Ranger heat tool to just try to dry it, make sure that the ink is set good and that the water is dried, because I am going to heat emboss over this. And so you want to make sure everything is dry. I should have used a better quality paper, but like I said, this is a scrap. Use what you got. And it seemed to work out okay with what I'm using it for. So next I'm going to go ahead and stamp this this new background stamp on there using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Now this stamp is about, I think it was 6 by 6, so it is a fairly large stamp, and it didn't stamp well the first time around. I have had that issue whenever I'm using my stamp platform, which I love, but when I'm using magnets on it, usually what winds up happening is there's not enough I guess I don't press down hard enough to get a good image done, and you'll see that in a sec. So not much of the ink went down, so I'm having to readjust the magnets and then basically re-ink and repress everything down. In the end, it turned out well, but it did take a little work to get the ink on there. Well, I also like to share with you things that you shouldn't do. So first off, you should notice that I neglected to use my powder tool when I'm going to be doing embossing. Now, it didn't turn out to be a problem with this because I'm using Wow embossing powder, and they're special formulated, so they tend to not stick where they're not supposed to. So that is incredible. So here I'm just spreading that all over this huge image. And because it is so big, I basically had to use the entire bottle just to pour it on there. No worries with that though. When you get done, there's enough that goes back off that it basically fills up your bottle again. This stuff lasts a long, long, long time, even for such a tiny bottle. So after I cover all of that, you can't see the image anymore. I'm going to be getting out my heat tool, my embossing heat tool from Brutus, to go ahead and emboss all of that. And whenever you're doing some heat embossing, you really should let the heat gun heat up a bit. It speeds up your embossing time, and it helps you to not burn your paper by holding it in any one spot for too long. You probably noticed that I did hold it away from the paper for a couple of seconds, I guess probably about 10-15 seconds. 20 seconds is usually better. This has not had enough time to heat up, so you see it's going really slow getting that first bit to emboss. And one of my favorite parts about embossing is seeing that image just appear on the page. It is just incredible. Another thing that you should not do is do not emboss or use your heat embossing tool over the embossing powder that you just used that's still sitting on your desk. I wound up blowing it all over my desk before I realized that I had forgotten and didn't do that. And there you can see where it just kind of blew, and it's like, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. So now you see I just moved the embossing powder out of the way so I could finish heating this page. And now that that heat gun has heated up a bit, it is going a lot faster to emboss the rest of the stamped image. And you can emboss it from either side. I'm not real sure which one is better for your normal purposes, but say you're using some chunky embossing powder, you may want to make sure that you do it from the bottom so that it doesn't blow all the pieces away and then you lose that incredible effect that you'll get. This one didn't really matter because it was just a standard glossy clear embossing powder. Okay, so now you can see all those little books and planners and cats all over that bookshelf. I love that stamp. It is just too cute. And since I didn't want to waste any of that inked background, I went ahead and positioned the stamp so that it would do another couple of shelves off to that side where there's not any ink yet. So I repositioned my stamp and I'm inking it up and putting that ink down on the page again using my stamp platform. And as usual, when I'm using my stamp platform, I do need to do a couple of stampings on it. So that's all done, so I always have to clean up my stamp because I don't want the ink to stick on there or ruin the stamp, and I just got this one. So I'm just cleaning that one up. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some embossing powder and heat emboss that couple of inches that's left on this panel. So I got a little embossing powder on the bookshelves that I had already embossed, so I'm just brushing some of that off. Since this is clear embossing powder, it wouldn't matter that much, unlike if this was a colored embossing powder, because if it was a colored one, then you'd wind up with basically colors where you don't want them to be. So I'm refilling that little jar and putting the lid on so I don't spill it, as that has happened before. And then I'm just going to go ahead and heat up those last couple of inches. Doing it from the back, and that way you can see that the image just kind of pop off there. I absolutely love it, that kind of reveal that shows up there. The panel is around 7 inches, and of course I measured wrong before I decided to cut it in half. Still turns out pretty good. One is a little bit wider than the other, but I'm going ahead and cutting that, and then I can put it on the front of 2 different cards. So first I need to get my card base ready, taking an 8.5 by 11 sheet of 300-pound cardstock, heavyweight cardstock that I got from Michael's, cutting that in half. So I'll have an A2 size card base, and then I'm scoring that using my score tool at 4 1/4. So I can just fold that in half and I'll have a card base. So next I'm just going to try out a couple of different arrangements for some of the cutout images that I had colored, I guess sometime last week. I'm not going to have you really look through all of it. I'm only having you watch kind of the finished product, because I did take probably about 5-10 minutes almost trying to decide what I wanted to do. Now these little images, I will post which stamp set those came from on the screen and or down in the comments for you, but those I did not have the dies for, so I used my scan and cut machine to cut out those cute little images. It works wonderful. I love cutting out, I love having it do all my fussy cutting so I don't have to, especially when I do a bunch. I'm lining up this row of books down at the bottom, and then I'm putting that cute little kitty that is just sleeping there instead of reading, but he's sleeping there. I'm putting that kitty right in front of the books off to the side. I thought that looked really cute. And next I'm going to just pop it up on some foam adhesive strips. I've got this big roll of foam adhesive. Sorry, I've got that on Amazon last year, and I'll give you a link for that as well. It works out pretty good. I mean, it is a little bit narrower than the Scotch that I was using, and I think it's a little thicker than that, but it is good sometimes to have a good variety. And this one has worked out well. This is actually my second roll of this adhesive. It was a little cheaper than the Scots last time when I purchased it, which was before Christmas. So now I'm just going to center that on the front of my card base, trying to give the same amount of gap all the way around. And then the card is finished. I'll thank you guys so much for watching my video, and come again soon. I will be putting some more up. Hopefully it'll be more regular now that I'm hopefully getting over this cold. Thank you again for watching, and have a wonderful day.